Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by. I'm glad to have you, and I hope you will consider subscribing. So today I have another canning video for you, and actually this is a remake of an older video I already had. If you have followed my channel very long, you know I already had a video on split pea and ham soup, but it needed some updating, and I'm going to start doing that with some of my older videos, giving them a little bit of a facelift and redoing some things so that they are a little more current. So we're going to be canning up split pea and ham soup today. I had some ham left over from Easter that I stuck in the freezer, and we are kind of getting to the end of what's considered soup season. I eat soup all year long, but we are kind of getting to the end of it, but I thought it'd be a great time to use up my leftover ham and can up some split pea and ham soup. It is fantastic. So this recipe comes from the Ball Blue Book of Canning and Preserving. I am going to be doing a small batch version, which is what is in this book. It is also in the Amish Canning Cookbook. Yes, this is a cookbook that I use, a canning book that I use, and I do trust this author. There's another version in here. It's basically the same, but it's a bigger recipe. There's only me now, so I don't need to can in large batches. So I am going to be doing some, which I have all along, I guess, done some smaller batch things, but I'm going to start demonstrating how to can things in smaller batches for those of you who are also empty nesters or single for whatever reason, or just don't need to can large batches of things. You can always double or triple batches if you are someone who cans for a large family. But this recipe is going to yield about 5 pints or 2 quart jars. Now, a little note about this recipe: if you've ever canned split pea and ham soup, you do know that it comes out very thick, and that is disturbing to some people. I shouldn't say disturbing, concerning. This is a tested recipe, and it is totally fine that it is thick. You may find that it is so thick in the jar that you have to use a spoon or a spatula to get it out, but the texture is fine. It has been tested, and it is good to go and totally safe. So when I open a jar, I usually add a little bit of water to it, just to loosen it up a bit. If you do not like that thicker consistency, you can always add more stock or water to the recipe as you are prepping it for canning. That's totally fine. I like to stick to the recipe, and then I can adjust the consistency when I open a jar. So you do whatever you feel is best for you. I just want to point out that it is a thick soup no matter what you do. It's like beans. As it sits in the jar and as it goes through the canning process, beans, dried beans of any kind, tend to absorb liquid, and they do tend to thicken in the jar. So don't be alarmed if you make this for the first time and find that it's in your jars and it looks very solid and very thick when you are done or as it sits on your shelf. It's totally fine. So we just need a few ingredients for this soup. You need 1 16-ounce package of dried split peas. You need 2 quarts of water or stock. I am using stock. Actually, I'm going to be using reconstituted Better Than Bouillon, the chicken flavor, but you could use the vegetable flavor if you wanted to, or you could use any stock that you prefer. You need about 1.5 cups of sliced carrots. I quartered my carrots and then cut them into slices to make them a little bit smaller, but you can do more like coins if you prefer. About 3 medium carrots. We need 1 cup of chopped onion, which is about 1 medium onion. We need 1 cup of diced cooked ham. Now this is a controversial ingredient because as a general rule, we are taught in canning to never use cured meats in canning. They are a different texture and can interfere with heat penetration during the canning process and could potentially be unsafe. I want to point out once again that this is a tested recipe and it's totally fine to use 1 cup of diced cooked ham. With that being said, make sure you stick to the 1 cup amount for every 16-ounce package of dried peas. Don't use more. And then we need 1 bay leaf, 1/4 teaspoon of allspice, salt and pepper to taste. It is always safe to add any dried spices your heart desires in canning. So if there's another spice that's dried in your pantry that you would like to add to your soup, it's totally fine to do that. So I'm gonna bring you in close and we're gonna get started. Okay guys, we are all set to get started. Like I stated earlier, I am going to be using stock instead of chicken stock instead of water. So I have 2 quarts of water that I have added 3 tablespoons of the Better Than Bouillon, there we go, Better Than Bouillon organic chicken. And I have let that dissolve. So to that, we are going to add 1 package or 16 ounces of dried split peas. I did rinse them and sort through them to make sure there's nothing in there that I don't want. Just give that a stir. And then I'm also going to go ahead and add 1 bay leaf. You could add 1 or 2. It's up to you depending on how much flavor you want. 1 is going to be fine for me. I'm going to bring this up to a boil and then I'm going to reduce it to a simmer and I'm going to let it simmer for about an hour until my split peas are nice and soft. Guys, we are back. I did want to note that I did simmer my soup with my lid on. So I've just taken the lid off to check it. My peas are nice and soft. They've started to break down. Ball does note that if you want a really smooth soup, you are welcome to puree it and then proceed. Here, I am not going to puree my soup. I like for my soup to have a little bit of texture. I know pureeing kind of goes against some of the things we are taught about safe canning, but in this case, this is a tested recipe by Ball and they do allow us to puree our peas and then add our other ingredients. So we are ready to move on. So what we're gonna do now is add the rest of our ingredients and then we're gonna simmer it for another 30 minutes. So I have 1.5 cups of diced carrots. Ball does say that you can slice them. I did dice mine in a smaller, I quartered them and then sliced them. It's about 1.5 cups of carrots, chopped carrots, or sliced, chopped or sliced. And then I have a cup of chopped sweet onion. You can use any onion you like. And we're gonna add that. And then we're gonna add 1 cup of chopped ham. This is ham I had left over from Easter. It was from a spiral sliced ham and I just took some slices and I diced them. Make sure you're only adding a cup. Ham is a controversial ingredient because it is considered a cured meat and we are taught to not use cured meats in canning. However, once again, this is a tested recipe, so we are allowed to add the 1 cup of chopped ham. Now, you might want to taste your soup to see how salty it is. The Better Than Bouillon can be a little bit salty. Some stocks can also be on the salty side, so you want to taste it to see where you are salt level wise. I'm going to go ahead and add a teaspoon, about a teaspoon of seasoned salt. It has some other flavors in there that I enjoy, so I'm going to use seasoned salt. You can use regular salt, you can use pickling salt, you can use sea salt, you can use whatever you want. I'm also going to add some granulated garlic, powdered garlic. I'm going to add a teaspoon of that. And then I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon of ground allspice. Again, you can add any dry seasoning you like. You can leave out any of these seasonings you like. Season your soup however you prefer. It's entirely up to you. The allspice does add a nice little bit of something in the background that you can't get any other way. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to give this a stir. I did leave in my bay leaf. We're going to give it a stir. I'm going to put my lid back on and I'm going to simmer it for another 30 minutes per Ball's instructions. While that's happening, I'm going to get my canner and my jars ready. Okay guys, we are all set for canning. I did cook my soup an additional 30 minutes with the lid on, and then I removed the bay leaf. So we are ready to start the canning process. I do have 3 inches of simmering water in my All-American canner. Make sure you follow the instructions that come with the canner that you are using. We are going to start with hot jars. You can process in pints or quarts. I'm going to be processing in pints. Modern canning guidelines state that we do not need to pre-sterilize jars or lids as long as we're processing for more than 10 minutes, and we are. So we're going to go ahead and fill our jars with our soup to a 1-inch headspace. All right, once you've reached your 1-inch headspace, you're going to use a debubbling tool, plastic butter knife, or chopstick to release any air bubbles. Then we're going to use a paper towel dipped in white vinegar to clean our rims. We're gonna center our lids and add our bands to fingertip tight. Then in the canner they go. Okay guys, I got exactly 5 pints. I have a tablespoon or so left, so the recipe was spot on this time. I like to add a couple of tablespoons of white vinegar to my canning water. It helps to prevent minerals in your water from collecting on the outside of your jars and making them look cloudy. So I'm going to use the rest of the white vinegar I had left over. I'm going to pour that in my canning water, and then we're going to go ahead and add our lid to our canner. Now for the All-American canner, you're going to line up the notch and the arrow, and then you are going to make sure that the lid's pretty even, and then you're going to tighten your thumb screws 2 at a time, opposites. If you are using a different canner other than the All-American, make sure you follow the manufacturer's instructions for your canner. All right, I have my heat cranked up to high. We are going to wait to see steam coming out of our vent, and we're going to allow our canner to vent for 10 minutes. Once our 10 minutes are up, we can add our weight. When we get there, I'll bring you back. Okay, we've been venting for 10 minutes. For those of you who are new, venting just means that you are allowing a steady stream of steam to be released from your vent for 10 minutes. It is part of the canning process, so please don't skip it. After you vented for 10 minutes, you are going to add your weight. I am processing at 10 psi. Make sure you know your altitude and what adjustments that you need to make. I'm going to add my weight at 10 psi. Once my weight starts rocking, I can start my processing time. If you're using a dial gauge canner, you're going to be canning at 11 psi. For the All-American canner, we want our weight to rock 1 to 3 times a minute, meaning that it will start to rock and then it'll stop, there'll be a pause, and then it'll rock again, and you want that to happen 1 to 3 times a minute. I know the Presto canner works a little bit differently. I believe it rocks consistently at a consistent pace throughout the canning process. So make sure you read the instructions that come with your canner and you understand how it works. So I am going to wait for my weight to start rocking. I'm going to start my processing time. I'm canning in pints, so we're going to process for 75 minutes. If you're canning in quarts, you're going to process for 90 minutes. Make sure once you start your processing time to adjust your weight just to maintain your rocking. You don't want it rocking too vigorously throughout the canning process. You just want to maintain what's appropriate for your canner. Make sure you adjust the heat slowly. Temperature fluctuations in our canner, when the temperature fluctuates quickly, that's one of the things that can cause siphoning. So make sure you adjust your temperature nice and slowly. But again, just at a heat, you just want a heat that maintains the appropriate rocking of your weight. If at any time you lose pressure, you have to start your processing time all over again. So just make sure that you know that. So we're gonna process for the appropriate time, and I'll bring you back. Okay guys, we are all done. I processed for 75 minutes, like I told you. If you're processing in quarts, you're going to process for 90 minutes. And then when my processing time was over, I turned my heat off, let my canner return to 0 pressure, waited about 5 minutes, took the lid off and waited. They've sat in my canner an additional 10-15 minutes or so, but we are all done. I just wanted to show you the finished product. Doesn't that look yummy? Split pea and ham soup is one of my favorites. But like I said, I just want to reiterate, it does get really thick. As it cools and sits on your shelf, it will continue to thicken up. That's very common of any dried bean. You will find that you can up, they tend to thicken and continue to absorb liquid. So no worries there. I hope this video was helpful to you. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them for me in the comment section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you next time.